Welcome to the Surviving to Thriving podcast, where we're dedicated to helping you break free from chronic inflammation and get your life back. I'm Dr. Rachel Yeager, naturopathic doctor and medical intuitive, and the founder of the Surviving to Thriving method of chronic illness recovery. Join me as we uncover strategies for overcoming health challenges and restoring your physical, mental, emotional, and soul health. Together, let's embark on a journey to thriving. Okay, today I want to talk about my own health journey and how I got sick and what I think made me sick, and also how this same area, focusing on it, has actually been really huge in helping me get better. So let's dive in. And basically, this is a background story of what put me into survival mode without realizing it. I was still functional. I had no idea I was doing this. I had no idea that this was happening. I was just showing up and living my life and participating in society the same way I saw other people doing. So I think this is going on for a whole lot of people. So I'm hoping to share my story as a way to hopefully help give you or anyone who's listening some insight into what might be going on with your health behind the scenes in this really overlooked area. So I was the kind of person who could push through anything. I could ignore my fatigue. I could ignore pain. If my body wanted, I wouldn't even know what my body wanted. If I needed to sit and study, to just hammer out some study time before a test, I would sit for hours studying. I thought I was just really disciplined. If I felt anxious about something, I would push that aside so I could perform and get the job done. I thought that mind over matter made me strong, but instead it nearly broke me. So ever since I was even a child, I was ignoring signals from my body, but I didn't know I was doing it. And I'm not talking about thirst signals or having to pee, although those can also end up being ignored too if you train your brain to. But I'm talking about more like deadlines, showing up. I was really academically inclined and wanted to perform well. And I wanted to show up on the sports I was playing, everything. I thought that the outcome and the achievement was worth pushing through and pushing my body to the other side. And in doing that, I was using my body as a tool to get to that outcome. So I just need to keep using my brain cells at full blast and keep sitting here still or keep doing whatever it is, ignoring how anxious I feel about something so that I can perform and do what I need to do. And my body was just a byproduct of me needing to get to that place. So I was just using my physical tool, my body, however I needed to get the academic and other achievements that I wanted, which I thought were the ultimate priority. So I thought they were more important than listening to my body. What I didn't realize was that I was becoming very dysregulated. So as I was sitting there studying, if I had listened to my body and I had asked it what it wanted, then I would have been told that my body wanted to move. It wanted movement. Instead, I would sit and study so long, sometimes I would start getting like sciatic pain because the goal was to get a really good grade on the test or do whatever it was. And so because I wasn't listening to my body started trying to scream at me. So I wasn't listening to the messages that were coming through on a 1 out of 10 scale. So my body amped up the dial to a 10 out of 10 scale. So every joint pain or feeling tired, whatever it was, amplified so much more. And so then I had more to push aside and work through. If I needed to do something like give a speech or something that would have set my nerves off and made me anxious, instead of talking to my body and acknowledging its emotion and making it feel heard and letting it know, I know you feel scared, but actually this is not a matter of life and death. I know it feels the same because to our bodies, everything feels like death, like possible death. And our bodies are focused on survival. And it literally can't differentiate the anxiety behind being chased by a lion and the anxiety behind being about to give a speech. So I wasn't listening to my body, and my body was screaming, "Lion, you're about to die." And I wasn't dialoguing and letting it know that I heard it. I'm just not going to react to that because guess what? It's actually not a lion. Instead, I just ignored its yelling at me. I ignored my body trying to talk to me. And my poor body was just trying to survive and trying to get its needs met and trying to get the movement and the circulation and the amount of sleep and all the things that it needed to function properly. And I was not even listening to my body's signals because if it was tired, too bad. I only had 5 hours to sleep because I needed to do sports and play the piano and study for the test and whatever else it may be. Eventually, down the line, my energy collapsed. I got unbearable brain fog. I had always had stable mood my whole life, but I started getting anxiety and low mood. And no amount of motivation or push through could override what was happening inside me. I finally hit a wall, which I think this is a really common experience to be able to push through until you can't. And when I was in the first stages of my healing journey, I thought that the point where I couldn't push through anymore was the point where I got sick. I thought that was where things went wrong. And I wanted the doctors to figure out what was wrong with me, what was happening, and what the thing was that happened at that point in time that made me not able to push through. And what I didn't realize until I was able to really work through a lot of this and look at it from a different angle and look at it from another perspective is that the patterns for me getting sick had started since I could remember. I'd been doing this since I could remember. If you get hurt, like just shake it off, just push it away. If you need to give that speech and you're anxious, like just do it, just ignore it. And anything that required achievement and academic success and something that was supposed to advance my quality of life in the future, all these things I was doing for my future self, supposed to push through and let my current self take harm from it so that my future self would be rewarded. But in the process, I was breaking down my future self and I didn't realize it. So the turning point for me was when I realized what was actually happening in my body and why. And I worked with some amazing therapists who helped me start to tune in and start to actually talk with my body. And this was huge because I had done all the things that I thought were healthy. So I was now sleeping a lot. I was eating healthy foods. I was making sure that I had a good morning routine. I was eating breakfast and doing all the things for health and like putting in a lot of effort into doing that. I was taking supplements. I was doing so many things. And at the same time, I wasn't truly listening to my body. So I was doing all these things because mentally I knew that they were healthy. I thought that they were healthy. And so I thought that was what I needed. But I was still actually actioning from my mind. So I was thinking about what my body needed instead of asking my body what it needed. And a lot of the things would have been the same. So the end goal would have actually been the same. My body needed sleep. My body needed breakfast. My body needed routines. However, the way I was going about it did not make my body feel listened to. So it wasn't like my body could trust me and feel safe with me because I was still living with all my energy up in my head and my mind, trying to think my way through things, logic my way through things, use knowledge to make my decisions instead of using my intuition, gut feeling, my knowing that comes from my body, and instead of dialoguing with my body. So what happened, looking back, is I entered a huge burnout stage. I was mentally burnt out. I was physiologically, so on a physical level, dysregulated. And I had a lot of things out of balance. And I'd been living from my head. And in doing that, had been disconnected from the trillions of cells in my body trying to get my attention. So once I finally realized what was happening, that my body didn't feel safe, that because my body didn't feel safe, I was in survival mode, whether I felt like it or not. Because I was in survival mode, my cells weren't signaling. And in fact, a lot of my cell signaling had been shut off for a long time. My brain and body connection was not fully online, and it wasn't stable and regulated and grounded. So, if we think about what's going on physically in our body all the time, we are light and signaling beings. You are made of 37 trillion cells, and they're not just passive, they talk to each other through light, photons, through chemical signals, and through electricity. Interestingly, when we have health problems going on, our light emissions from the body, our chemical signals, and our electricity are all blunted and not happening the way that they should be. We have little mitochondria, those little engines in each cell that you probably learned about in high school biology. They don't just make they don't just make energy, but they sense danger. They guide our healing, and they even regulate how we express which genes. And our genes determine our inflammation levels and how we feel. And it's all interconnected, and it all trickles down and affects each other. If we zoom in on our brain-body regulation, our brain isn't just a thinker. It's actually a hormone conductor. It also regulates our immune system. It responds to stress. It's like the master thermostat. It is the train conductor. It is setting the tone and the hormone signaling and all the things that are happening in the body. When our brain, which is keyed in for our survival as its main goal, when it senses a threat, even subtle ones, it reroutes everything. So when we're in fight or flight, our digestion slows, our hormones shift, our neurotransmitters drop. We stop running our healing, restorative processes. The list goes on and on. So this big picture look at the body and our cell signaling is often where conventional medicine falls short because it's not looking at our cell signaling and it's trying to silo and separate every part of our health. So I really love the field of science. We can call it PNEI, but it's psycho-neuro-endocrine-immunology. Sometimes people call it psycho-neuro-endocrine-immunology. And basically, this field is mapping the interconnectedness of our thoughts, our nervous system, our hormones, and our immune system, and how they are interconnected and constantly talking. So if you think one stressed thought, within seconds, your body makes a chemical decision based on it. So if you've ever felt sick after a stressful week or gotten a cold every time you finally slow down, if you've lost your period or gained weight or had brain fog while you're going through stressful emotions, those are just really obvious examples of PNEI in action, where our body perceived something and then physically responded to it. So this just shows the power of our mind, which our mind is so insanely powerful. It governs so many things that are going on. And whether we feel safe or not is actually determining our physiological processes. If we're not listening to our body, then we are not going to feel safe. But it's not listening to our body in the sense that's commonly being talked about and what I see being shared online and what I see other people talking about. This is more like an inner knowing and being in touch with your deep self and your deep physical body, not using your mind to try to figure out what your body wants. So most of us, when we think of what does my body want? Like, okay, yeah, I know nutrition's important. I know sleep's important. All those examples I was sharing. This is different. And it's really honestly hard to describe it in a way because it's a feeling and it's a very grounded, trusting, deep knowing feeling. And when we're in this state where we're actually open to receive signals from our body, when I'm not talking about pain signals or anything that's necessarily unpleasant, it can even just be like, what does my body need in this moment kind of signals. When we're open and we're receiving those, our body knows it's safe because we are going to listen to any threats it's perceiving to our survival. And that's its main job, is to keep us safe and keep us surviving. My healing began when I stopped trying to fix my body from the outside and started listening to it like a living, intelligent ecosystem, like a beloved pet that had very concrete, real needs. And I started thinking about loving my body in a totally different way, where I wasn't going to make my body push through something just so that mentally I would reap a reward later. I was instead going to prioritize my body's needs and not push through and ignore anything. Burnout, anxiety, fatigue, these aren't flaws, they're messages. And there is a whole science that helps us decode them so we can work with the body and not against it. Because I had gotten to such a point of dysregulation, which is usually when most people start getting sick, I have yet to meet someone who has chronic illness who is actually truly regulated from the get go. Even though I would have thought I definitely was not. And so once we get to this point of dysregulation, here's the tricky part. We can teach ourselves safety by listening to our body, by not pushing through, by honoring our body's cues, by having open dialogue, by bringing our energy down from our minds into our bodies to embrace our deep inner knowing. However, because we were living in such a dysregulated state for so long, there are physical processes that got affected. And our body learned that every time some cue came up, some trigger in our environment, that we needed to shut down our hormone production, or we needed to create a certain chemical cocktail in the brain and then therefore release adrenaline and other excitatory neurohormones that are going to keep us from sleeping and going to make us feel anxious and feel awful. So our body has already learned the patterns. The footprints are already in the sand. We need to route new pathways in the sand, or our body will just keep taking the same footprints that are in the sand. So this is where physical health meets brain rewiring, nervous system regulation, body dialogue, somatic work, anything that has to do with your brain-body signaling. This is where they blend together in a holistic way if we know what we're looking for. So back to PNEI, the psycho-neuro-endocrine-immunology field of how our cross-signaling in all of these different areas is connected. We can actually help support all of those root cause systems in the body so that our body can make new pathways, so that it has the tools and the foundational building blocks to even create the new pathways. And we can teach it to have different chemical signaling. Maybe it has stockpiled adrenaline and we don't even have the tools to create serotonin for a more calming effect. So we can actually look at all of that, give our body the resources it needs, and help physically map the new pathways so that our brain can guide our body to take that new pathway from the work that we're doing to help regulate. A lot of times as well, I would say people start to dive into the regulation work because they've seen a lot about it online. They've heard a lot of success stories, and we all know how important it is intuitively. Like, we know in our body that our body wants that. We're like, yes, that feels true. I do need regulation. And if that's the case, then you do. It's so true. You do need regulation, but it is really hard to try to regulate in a body that doesn't feel safe. And sometimes the safety is actually coming from physical processes being off. So if we can help balance all the physical processes under that PNEI umbrella, so our cells are actually signaling again, our brain is online again, our brain and body connection is happening, our mitochondria can function normally, we have the resources to be creating the hormones and the brain chemicals that we need. If we can take care of that area, I find that the nervous system regulation happens so much more efficiently and effectively, and it doesn't feel like just hitting your head against a wall because you have the actual physical pathways being mapped out. And if you work on your physical well-being, you will start to get some wins. You'll start to get some physical wins, get a little bit more energy, get a little bit more clarity, start feeling more peace and feeling like more joy. And then it's a lot easier to do brain work when your body is feeling better than to try to push yourself to do brain work when you're feeling like absolute crap. And I would say too, there are some nervous system regulation programs out there that are definitely some that are better than others. And some of the ones that were used more in the past are sometimes actually harmful to people, in my opinion, because they tell you to tell your body that everything's fine and you're safe and there is no problem and your body can just re-regulate now. And what if over the years of you being dysregulated, so your immune system was really suppressed, what if you did get something like a chronic infection or something that's causing inflammation that has risen up and it's present? You're gaslighting your body by telling it everything's fine, there's no real problem. Your body's, wait, my immune system is literally seeing a problem and I'm trying to signal you. So in that case, a lot of people, I don't love to use the term gaslighting a ton just because I feel like it's used a lot, but that's definitely a term that resonates with a lot of people who've shared with me when they've tried to do that work previous to us working together. And then that's how they ended up feeling, was like their body was just being told lies because they weren't actually addressing their root causes. All of that together, this is why I love PNEI, the whole interconnectedness of our cell picture or cell signaling. This is why I love looking at physical health and how it connects with mental health and holding them together. And I would challenge you to ask yourself, where have you been overriding your body's whispers? If your body were a beloved pet, the most favorite pet you've ever had, or if you've never had a pet, just imagine some other animal that you could see yourself taking care of. If that pet or animal came back from a walk and it was panting and it needed water, would you not give it water? Would you tell it to just push through because you want to work on something? Or would you give it water? I would imagine you would give it water. And we are depriving our bodies if we're not treating them the same way as we would a beloved pet that's going to be with us for a really long time. But we don't think of it that way just because of how things are set up in our society. So ask yourself, what would you be doing differently if you started looking at your body as a beloved pet? And what if your path forward was more about rebalance and root cause healing and listening instead of trying to logic and mentally, with all of your energy in your mind, trying to mentally push your way through everything? If this speaks to you, I do guide women through this layered approach. It's rooted in the science of cortisol and neurotransmitters and hormones and nutrients. I really love helping people regain clarity and energy and the trust in their body that I have regained through my own healing journey. And now I've worked and helped so many people regain that too. If you'd like to learn more, definitely follow along. I'm going to be talking about this more in the future. And also feel free to follow me on social media. I'll put my handle in the show notes. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Surviving to Thriving podcast. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights to support your journey towards better health and happiness. Remember, each health journey is unique. This podcast is not medical advice, and it's essential to consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes. If you'd like to schedule a complimentary consultation with me, I would love to talk with you. Please go to drrachelyeager.com/schedule.